Hello everybody, I'm your baking queen and welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make a peach blossom dessert. Now this dessert is commonly made with apples, but we had some neighbors bring us some fresh peaches, so I decided to make the same dessert but with peaches instead. So let's get going. You're going to need a couple things. You're going to need your fruit, so in this case I'm using fresh peaches. You're going to need some puff pastry sheets. You're going to need a little bit of sugar, a little bit of flour, and that's just basically for the sheets, so when you're rolling it out, so not a whole lot. You're going to need a couple tablespoons of butter. This is also for the sheets that you're going to melt down and spread, so just a couple tablespoons is all you need. I'm going to use a ruler so that I know how big my sheets are, so they're all kind of consistent, and then something to slice up my peaches with. So now that we have all of our ingredients, let's get started. Alright guys, so the first step you're going to do is get your peaches. I have washed these already. Now these are some fresh peaches. So there's a couple spots where you can see where they have been out, and so I'm going to have to cut those pieces out. But what we're going to do first is we're going to take a peach, and I have a paring knife, and I'm just going to cut it in half. Now remember, the pit is in the middle, so that's what we're going to have to take out. So you basically just want to take your paring knife and cut your peach in half as evenly as you can, and then kind of jiggle it so you can get your peach off of that pit in the middle, which can be quite challenging. You can hear it coming. I'm just trying not to put some muscle into it. Let's see, and I boogered that one up, but that's okay. But we can still use that. So there you go. So now I'm just gonna pop this peach pit out from the middle. This one, the best I can. My little piece I missed. Be very, very careful when you're doing this, especially when you're using knives. You don't want to cut yourself. You don't want to make a mess with any bodily fluid that might come out. But yeah, this one is just stuck in here. Like, it does not want to let go, and I think I just oops on that one. Oh, man. Yeah, these are definitely some fresh peaches. Alright, so I got the pit out of my peach. So now you just want to very carefully slice these into thin pieces. If you have a slicer or something, it would be a lot easier. These are a little soft because they're becoming a bit ripe. So I'm just going to slice these the best I can by hand with my little paring knife here. Alright everybody, so I have cut all my peaches. So I sliced them pretty thin, and then each one I kind of cut into a half piece, like so. And you'll see why in just a minute. So I cleared off the space here. This is my puff pastry sheet. You can find this in your grocery store in the frozen food section, usually by where all the frozen fruits, pie shells, that sort of stuff is. So I got the sheet. I'm going to take, now this is a non-stick pad thing I have, but I'm going to take a little bit of flour, all-purpose flour, and put it down. This is just going to give me a little bit more reassurance with my puff pastry here. But I'm just going to roll it out onto my sheet, onto my surface, and I'm going to take just a little bit more flour. Now these are usually pretty floured up, but depending on when you take them out of the freezer, make sure it's thawed out is the other thing. They do usually, in the frozen section, they come frozen. You just want to give it a little bit of a roll just to kind of flatten it out a little bit more. But it should be pretty much ready to use in this state. 1/4 inch thick, which it looks like it's a 1/4 inch right now. Alright, so that looks good to me. So now, remember we had our ruler. Whoops. Okay, I'm going to need my paring knife again. So you want these strips this way to be about 3 inches thick each. And I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, but so you should be able to get about 3 about 3 strips per. You just do it cut across. And this does not have to be perfect by any means. You just want it to be about 3 inches in thickness. If it turns out that you don't like the amount of puff pastry in your blossom, you can always do less, smaller piece or whatever. Alright, so now the fun part. We're going to take our yeah. So my peaches are smaller than, I guess, a normal peach. So I'm going to cut these in half. So these are going to be a lot smaller. But that's okay. So basically you're just going to lay your peach. So the curve is going to be up above, coming out, because that's going to make your petal. And you just want to take your pieces and kind of overlap them. And just keep going. Let's see, let's try this piece. And see, some of my pieces, like I really did a hack job on these peaches, so some of them are not coming out too now. Now you're going to put this in a cupcake container, mold, muffin mold. Okay, so now you want to take your melted butter. I melted down my butter. You have a brush, it makes it a little easier. But just take your butter and pat it down. Like so. And then you're going to take some sugar, my sugar here, and you're going to sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle with the sugar. Alright, now the fun part. This part here needs to fold up. And this is where it gets a little tricky because your fruit, like especially the peaches, are very juicy. So this is where it gets a little difficult. But you want to take this and roll it into itself. And coming out a little bit. And you should get what appears to be a rose. And then I'm going to drop this. That came out a little bit, so hopefully that'll bake together. But I greased one of my muffin tins, and you're just going to drop that inside like that. If you want to put more sugar on the top, you can. Just make sure you grease down your muffin pans really, really well. Because the sugar, it's going to bake, and of course that's going to caramelize and it'll stick even more. So you just want to make sure that your muffin tin is greased really, really well before you do this. So you continue this process until you have all your muffin tins panned up, and then we will bake them. So I'll see you in a minute. Alright guys, so we have our blossoms ready to go in the oven. So they're going to go in there at 375 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes. Now this is to make sure that that puff pastry is completely baked through. So they're going to get very dark, they're going to get very brown, especially with the sugar on there. So make sure you spray your muffin pan really, really well, especially if you're going to do extra sugar or anything like that. So let's put these in the oven and I'll see you back in about 40 to 45 minutes. Alright everybody, so our peach blossoms have just come out of the oven. They did take the entire 45 minutes. I put them in for 40 minutes to begin with and checked them. You're checking for the doneness of the puff pastry, because if you don't cook it all the way through, the middle part is going to be gummy, and I don't know about you, I don't like a gummy puff pastry. I like to be nice and flaky and light. So I just went ahead and baked them for the entire 45 minutes. So the smaller ones are the ones that I cut in half. So instead of the 3-inch puff pastry, that's 1.5 inches, because my peaches were a little small. The ones on the end were kind of my remnant pieces, so that's why they look a little bigger. That's completely up to you though. If you like a nice big kind of pastry, go for it. It looks more like a roll as opposed to my flowers over here, my blossoms. But again, that's all personal preference. So what you want to do now, because they just came out of the oven, so we're going to let these sit here and cool for just a little bit, not completely. And then we're going to take them out of the tin, because if you remember, we put the sugar on there. So the sugar has been crystallized. So as it cools, it's going to harden, and then your nice little blossoms will be stuck in your muffin pan. So we're going to just let these sit here for just a few minutes until they're cooled down enough to where we can pop them out and then put them on a plate or something so they can cool down completely, and then you can enjoy them. So I'll see you back here in just a few minutes. Alright everybody, so it's been just a few minutes. I've popped out my peach blossoms out of our muffin tin. As you can see, they've come out just lovely. There's going to be some of the sugar is going to burn because it's in there for 40-45 minutes. You're going to have some of that, but otherwise they turn out really nice. These cute little tarts, just like that. Now you can leave them like this if you want. You can put, like, if you got like a glaze or something you want to do. I'm just going to take my little sifter and I'm going to sift just some powdered sugar over the top. It adds a little bit more sugar, and it kind of dresses it up a little bit more. You put as much or as little as you want. It's up to you. And then I'm going to take, oh, this one looks very nice. Look at that. Just one like this, and there you go. There's your nice your peach blossom. And you can eat these as is. You can warm them up however you want, but there you go. That's how you do your little peach blossom. Not super easy like some of the other things I've shown you in the past, if you've been following my other videos. This one's a little bit more complicated and a little bit more time consuming. With the peaches, there's more juice in the peach. So if you decide to do this, especially if it's your first time, try it with apples first. They're a little easier to manage. Otherwise, find a peach that maybe isn't quite so ripe. They'll be a little bit more firm, maybe a little bit easier to handle and to roll up. But otherwise, it's the same process. You end up with pretty much the same thing in the end. Of course, if your peaches are a little bit bigger, your blossoms are going to be bigger too. So keep that in mind when you're baking, because the bigger the fruit, the bigger your puff pastry, it's going to take a few more minutes in the oven. So I hope I've inspired you to, get out there and try to make a few of these pastries and, expand your baking repertoire, if you will. So until next time, everybody, just keep baking.